Hello, Games Industry Biz Live. My name is Doug Pennant and I am a development manager at Creative Assembly. And it's a pleasure to be here giving you a talk on game production. This is all about how to prepare yourself for the games industry and what's involved in production. First, a quick introduction of who am I and why am I talking about this. So I've been in the games industry for about 11 years. 9 of those years have been at Creative Assembly and nearly 6 of those years have been in production. Before that, I was a QA in Microsoft and audio QA in Creative Assembly, just to give you a sense of my journey. How did I get here? And currently, I'm a development manager for the Total War team, focusing on audio in the Warhammer franchise games. So, this talk is what I wish I'd studied before joining production. And hopefully this can give you a good head start on your own journey. Alright, so first up, in the simplest way, what does a producer do? Because a producer doesn't really make games. Like, they aren't creating the assets, they aren't building the code. So what do? The way I see it, producers make games happen. So they bring together the resources and the materials and are required under a common goal. And then you help these ensembles of people and technology create brilliant games. Now, I'm going to be referring to a lot of information that is kept on a Trello that you can follow along with if you want. So this is a Trello I built specifically for this presentation, and it's there on the screen, trello.com production materials. But future me, if he's doing his job, will be sharing the link in the Discord chat right now as well. But we are going to be going through the production Making It Happen page, and we're going to be covering the responsibilities, the methods, the skills and the tools that will define your everyday life as a game producer. So, let's start with responsibilities, the big things. So, what is a producer's mission? Like, I know, why did you hire a producer in the first place? Why did they hire you? And the mission, as I see it, is to ensure that the desired product is delivered complete, on time, and to an acceptable quality. If you ask different producers, the wording may vary, but I think this will be roughly the sentiment they should all come to. And ensure is a word you're going to hear me use quite a lot, and you'll see why. So, across game development, there are 3 main phases. There is pre-production, production, and finaling, sometimes known as post-production. And your responsibilities will vary between these. So let's talk about pre-production first. So the first thing is ensuring that the production vision is agreed. You have a whole team of people, it may be 1, 2, or several hundred, but you need to make sure that they're all making the same game. And so you need to make sure they talk, they share information, and at the end the product vision is well communicated out and agreed. And so you're all going to make the same game, and you can unleash your creatives onto it. Then you need to create the development schedule. You take input from everyone else, like how long they think it'll take to make certain features. You think about the due dates, like when do we need a demo? When do we need to release to the platform? And you are the one that then builds the schedules using all the knowledge and tools you can bring together. And then you need to organize the resources to help enable that. And resources include people, skills, they include software, hardware, money, ice creams in some cases. But all of these things, you will be accountable for making sure that everything was there so people had what they need to get out there and make the game. And basically just ensuring that the team is ready for production. All their questions are answered, all the resources are there, and the plan is complete. Now we are moving on to production. And your primary role there is going to be tracking development progress. So people will be looking to you for asking, are we on track? Are things going well? And you'll have different measurements for that as you go. It will be time remaining on tasks, bugs, goals met. I know it might be stories completed, depending on the methodology. But it will be your job to track this stuff and relay it back to the team so they know where they are. And they know how close they're getting to their goal. Next up is ensuring effective communication. And there's a big difference between communication and effective communication. And you, as a producer, are going to have to be the master of that and teach your team the rest of this. You want good communication between yourself and others, and between them when you're not there. I'll be doing a lot more on communication skills a little later in the talk, as there's lots to cover. And also, it will be your job to protect the team. And this is mostly protecting the team from surprises. So surprises like, oh, we ran out of time on this. The license expired on this software. All the kind of speed bumps that can suddenly set back a development team. It's demoralizing, it slows down, it costs money, and it can compromise the whole project. It's your job as much as possible to be on the front line of surprises that come your way and protect the team and make sure only the problems they are equipped to solve are the ones that come to them. And now we're getting into finaling, the last stage of the project. And finally, your responsibilities for this section are ensuring development ends gracefully. So as few bugs as possible and no half-finished features. It's often better to push a feature to a later release or a later product than it is to ship it half done. You're much better closing that for now and spending the time making sure the features you do have to ship with are good and are watertight. And those bugs need fixing as well. The QA can put them all in and call out everything in the game, but your devs will often need to know when's the right time to fix bugs, what bugs do I have, make sure it's easy for them to find that information, and that they clearly know what the priorities are and when it's time to fix bugs. It may well be down to you to ensure that your game is localized as well. And this involves everything from making sure your text and dialogue pipelines provide all the information that localizers require, and making sure you have the localization services yourself and that you've agreed the pipelines with them. You might not have to do this work directly yourself, but you need to make sure that it happens and that someone does it. And then finally, ensuring delivery of the game. And what needs to go into this? You have to send a build to someone at some point, right? Are you putting things onto disks? Are you shipping them out there? What's needed and who needs to do what? What do the build engineers need to do? What do your coders need to provide? And what metadata is needed for the product page on Steam? You need to ensure all this happens. And that's the key thing. That's why the word ensure is coming up. Much of this work is stuff you don't directly do yourself. But if it doesn't happen, they will ask the producer why. And the final thing they will ask, why didn't this happen, if it doesn't, is the launch party. It might not feel like the most important part of developing a game, but you have to remember, you're developing a game with people. And people want to celebrate something when it's done and when it's gone well. And it's a big part of making them feel like the team. So you may have some staff at your company, if it's large enough, that help with this, and operations, events coordination, or maybe you're making the phone calls yourself. But in any case, make it happen. And that's your responsibility finally. Now across these three phases and across the whole project, you have one more responsibility, which is one of the hardest ones. And it's keeping the team motivated. And they often say, actually, you can't motivate people. You can stop them from getting demotivated. And there are some techniques that you can use to help you do this. And it's difficult, but it's not impossible. And so one of them is straightforward. It's have a clear mission. Make sure that everyone knows what the goal is and how close they are to it. When everyone knows where they're going, they can be invested in going faster. And so keep that clear for everyone. People get really demotivated if they're lost. That never feels good. Next up is learn your team and find out what their strengths are. Because that's what they want to do. They want to feel good at what they're doing. This will keep them excited. If they feel I'm good at creating complex systems for the gameplay, then help them find that, help them feel that, help that get delivered. And if your artists want to create really good environment models, help them do that and get the things out of their way that slow them down from delivering on those strengths. They want to see the fruit of their strengths in the game at the end. And that's what gets them excited. That's why they're here. So use their strengths as best you can. And let them own their work. I was asked recently a really good question. It was, if a game struggles financially when on release, does that demoralize the team? And my answer was a little bit, but not nearly as much as if the game goes out not as good as the developers wanted it to be. If their art goes out and it's not as good as they wanted it to be, that demoralizes them. And so the best thing you can do is really let them own their work and be in control of how their work gets out there into the game. Because the worst thing is if it goes out and something else compromised it. Either someone took time away from them, or someone changed something that they were invested in. Like, that is demoralizing. And you can avoid that. So let people own their work. And again, keep threats at bay. Keep surprises at bay. No surprise changes to the project as much as possible. No, if there are surprise changes to the working environment, try to keep that away from the developers until it can be managed, and keep them safe in their developing world. There's a couple of resources up on the Trello that can help with some of these ideas. So there's a really good video about motivation based on the work of Dan Pink. And there is the legendary TED Talk from Simon Sinek about purpose and the why of an organization or a team. It's really good. It's very inspirational. And so I recommend watching them both. Okay, that's the responsibilities of a producer. Now let's talk about methods. Those are your responsibilities. How do you deliver on them? What do you do every day? So the first thing we're going to talk about is project management methodologies. And because project management, it doesn't sound exciting, but that is the study. And this is the study that goes beyond the games industry into other industries. And we're lucky it did, because we've adopted a lot of these premises from software development. There's always some variation, because developing a website or a software tool isn't the same as developing an exciting game and telling a story. And with all these extra Hollywood elements sometimes, you're not going to take any of these methodologies and apply them wholesale. You're going to take them, study them, understand their strengths and weaknesses in contexts, and just keep the good bits and build your own methodology from what you've learned. But here's some ideas to get you started. So you'll hear waterfall very often. And this is when A happens, then B happens, then C happens, then D happens. And they have to happen in that order. And this is where this can help you figure out what needs to happen in what order, which resources are needed when, and how long this can all take. And this is a useful management methodology in a connected, interdependent situation. So your design needs to happen, then your writing, then your concept art, and your character model, then your animation, VFX, audio, QA. That's an example, a common example of a waterfall in video games. Then we have lean. Lean is all about the reduction of waste in the way that you develop. So I use the example of the cyclist here because everything is streamlined. Everything is designed to reduce drag, reduce air impact, and so the cyclist can go faster. And you want the same for your team. You don't want any what's sometimes called zombie processes that just slow them down, get in the way. Maybe there are tools that can make a 20-minute job into an instant button click. Like those little things that get between your developers and good developing and just delivering on their intentions. And there is a methodology called Kanban, which is a more direct, more described way of working with a selection of cards from a bucket and working forwards. There's information on that in the Trello. I won't go into too much detail now, but you'll hear about it quite a lot in the industry. Then we have Agile and Scrum. These are the ones everyone is talking about at the moment, and so you need to know about these. So the concept of Agile is all about constant review, improvement, and iteration. And whatever cadence you use, you'll want a system to make sure you always look again so you can change depending on changing circumstances. And Scrum is the methodology within this that lots and lots of game studios use or use a variant of. So this is where you'll hear of phrases like the stand-ups, the sprints, sprint reviews, sprint planning, all of these kind of things. Again, there is information up on Trello. These are really useful ones to look into. And then finally, there's PRINCE 2. PRINCE is a fancy acronym for Projects in Controlled Environments. It isn't used much directly in the games industry, but it's used across lots of other industries, and it's still extremely good studying for good planning practice. It is based around the categories of things you want to understand before you commence a project. So like the examples are here. So how do you track process? What are your risks? How is the quality defined? Etc. And even though you don't use this, it is worth studying and having it input the way you do your work and your project management. And I mean studying. Like these are, like there are courses for these ones, there are books, videos everywhere. Because all of this stuff is the science of what you can do and what you are helping to achieve and what people are relying on you for. So that's project management methodologies. That's the science. Now some of the art. And so communication, once again, it's your job to ensure this happens, and even happens when you're not there. And that means communication pipelines. And so here are some good practices for setting up a good communication pipeline. First, figure out who needs to contact who. Which developers need to talk to each other every day? Which directors need to hear from which developers? How do the directors talk? How do QA get all of their information to and from the right people? You figure out all of these things about who needs to contact who. Then you can set up all the systems, all the mail groups, all the tools, all the Slack channels, all of that to make sure the right people are easily in contact with each other. But don't forget that they might not know how to use those tools at first. We have just gone through a huge change in the way the world works, and now everyone has had to learn Zoom. Lots more people have had to learn Discord, and these can be intimidating at the start. We're already surrounded by communication tools. And so if you're setting up communication pipelines, remember to teach your team how to use them and how to use them well. It won't take much, but there's no point in setting up these great communication pipelines if people are just going to ignore them because it's too much effort to get into a new tool. So take that time and do that work. And just do whatever it takes to make it easy for the team to communicate. And crucially, you want them communicating with each other, not through you. You don't want to be delivering every single message between all the various team members. It's slow, it's inefficient, and you don't understand what they're doing. So much in my job is about getting technical people to talk to each other, because I can't carry a message from one coder to a designer, because actually their systems they're above my level of technical understanding. And so it will be slow and I will lose information. And so rather than delivering the letters myself, I would rather launch a satellite so they are directly talking to each other, all of them. So this is the metaphor for it. Don't deliver letters, launch satellites, and help your team all communicate easily. Then we have team processes, and this is the real creativity of being a producer. This is your problem solving, and your problems are going to be different every single time. But there are ways to think about it. There are frameworks for how to deal with solving a problem so it stays solved. And so step 1, identify the problem. Something is on fire. It's not supposed to be on fire. And so the first thing you can do is solve the problem. Put out the fire, and then before you do anything else. So the problem is solved, but you don't want it to happen again. And so this is where you create a process, like a sign saying no barbecues or no fires, to try and stop the fires from starting again. This process could be anything. It could be a digital thing. It could be a regular meeting. There's lots that happen. But then remember to monitor the impact of your solutions if you can, because you want to know, 1, if a solution is good, it might work on another problem in the future. And 2, if it doesn't work, well, you still need that to stop that problem from happening again. So you'll need to create another process. So remember to monitor the impacts. Let's talk about a game example. So in game development. So an example problem. Your QA don't know which game features are ready to test. So you can solve that today by contacting the feature leads, find out what's ready to test and tell QA. But you don't want them to hit this problem again. So how do we solve it so it stays solved? So let's try a process. An example might be the feature leads send out a regular weekly email to QA of what has been worked on, and QA can update their lists accordingly. That might work. You'll need to stay in touch with QA and monitor the impact of this, asking them regularly, are you aware of what's going on and is your problem solved? So that's one example, but your problem solving is going to be a huge part of your job, and team processes are the kind of solutions you're likely to bring, and we can be creative. And lastly, meetings. And there was a talk I saw recently called Fix Your Broken Meetings. There's a great line in it. There's never too many meetings. Like, too many meetings isn't a problem. Too many bad meetings is a problem. Because actually good meetings are where you all get together, you solve a problem, and you get it done. A good meeting can do that. But a bad meeting is you get in, someone changes the subject, you didn't have the information, the wrong people were there, and you just wasted time and no one knows what they're doing and nothing has been solved. So there are a few things you can do to try and encourage good meeting discipline. So the first thing you can do is you can prepare. You can create an agenda, send it out, plan the topics of conversation. Like, right, what are we coming together to answer? You can also prepare by asking people to bring along data or make sure the right people come. Make sure this meeting is ready to happen. After preparing the meeting, you chair the meeting. So you come back to your agenda, make sure it gets covered, keep the conversation on topic, and help people make it a good conversation, make sure everyone gets heard from if they have something to say. And then at the end, they agree on the actions. Who's going to do something when the meeting is over? And then after preparing and sharing, you share the details. So send out any notes you've taken and send out the actions. Who are we expecting to do what? And then what's happening? Is there going to be another meeting or is it all done? For a good meeting, prepare your information, chair the meeting, and then share all the details. And those are your methods. Those are the things that every producer is likely to be doing day to day. And those methods are influenced by the skills you have as a producer. There are a few of them, so I'm just going to fly through as best I can. But these will all take investment over months and years. And the more you invest in these, the closer to being a super producer you will be. So let's start with learning. Because being a producer means constant learning. Things change all the time. And tools change, which changes processes. Different people arrive. Making games means doing things differently. Making different games means doing things differently again. Your audiences change. Maybe you'll change job, and everything is different, even down to the working culture. You have to learn new things all the time. So how can you make this easier for you? So you want to understand your own learning style. Think about something you've learned and how you learned it. Like something you're good at. How did you learn that? Did you learn it through reading? If so, maybe books and articles are the best way forward for you. Did you learn through listening? In which case podcasts and other online material like that could be good. Listening to talks. Maybe you watch videos and that really stays with you. So there's a tutorial for everything now on YouTube. But also there are the GDC talks and lots of other industry things. There's plenty to watch there. Maybe you make stuff. I have always found my skills stay with me best if they go directly into me building something. I solve the problem in my own hands. When I was learning Visual Basic for Excel, actually building a project with whatever I was learning at the time, it meant things stayed with me so much better. And I learned all these principles. So maybe that's your way. Or maybe finally discussion. Maybe actually just grabbing everyone and dragging them into a room or dragging them down the pub, still works, and then asking them, hey, can someone explain blockchain to me? Maybe that's the best way for you to learn. And it's likely a combination of all of these 5. But understand how learning works well for you, because you're going to do a lot of it. And then after learning comes teaching. Because as a producer, you're going to be teaching things to your team all the time. These are going to be new processes, new ways of work. All those things you were just learning all the time, you're probably having to teach them as well. And so think about how do you accommodate those learning styles in other people? So are your written guides good enough? Like, can you make video tutorials? Are you good at giving presentations? Maybe you can create exercises, like create a Jira item, assign it to someone else, and close a Jira item. Just things to help people practice. And perhaps even some face-to-face teaching, or side-to-side at their desk. But you look at these ideas and think, are you good at them all? Or are there some that you can invest better in? They're all learnable skills, and they're all going to be very important in your work going forwards. So let's focus on one for a moment, presenting. So I've been giving presentations of various kinds for several years now. And they're not all lectures like this. Some of them are even just presenting findings in work and presenting content people have done at the end of a sprint. You might be pitching a game one day, and there's no more demanding presentation than that. And this could be quite intimidating for a lot of people. But there are some things you can do to give yourself some confidence and give yourself conviction in your presenting. And so just a few principles to take away are: 1, what is the goal of your presentation? Because it's very easy to create loads of waffle in what you're doing. And this can help you know that you're on track. So for me, the goal of this presentation was share my understanding of what my job is and what I wish I had known coming in, so that a new generation of developers can be more prepared than I was and hopefully be better producers faster. That's the goal of this presentation, and that's how I measure everything I put into it. Is it serving that goal? And you can do the same in your presentations. Next, who's your audience? Is it students, or is it developers, or is it investors, or is it your parents? Like, how would you present a game to them? Think about that. But it changes everything it changes a lot of what you do. Think like, what do they understand? Like, what don't I need to explain? What do I need to explain? And how am I going to do it? Like, is it a presentation in a room? In which case, will they have materials to hand? Like, I know that most of this audience are at their computers right now, and so have access to Trello, which is why I can include the interactive materials that I know maybe some of you are browsing right now. But that's understanding an element of the audience. Next up, rehearse. I rehearsed this a couple of times, because it really helps me find where I stumble. Where do the words not quite come? Where am I trying to express an idea that I don't quite have my head around? And it can often be useful to rehearse with other people as well. And they can tell you, I didn't understand this bit. I found that bit confusing. That was too loud. Like, this is how you can know that actually you don't have to guess, is this presentation good? You can know. And that can give you confidence. And then pro gamer move at the end of it is anticipating the questions. So let's talk about pitching a game. It's easier to think of there. You pitch a game, and then you ask at the end, any questions? You can expect what some of those questions are going to be. They're going to ask, like, what is the experience of your team? What are the skills that your team currently missing? Where is your money coming from so far? What's your plan B? Like, you can think of the questions coming, and you can prepare in advance for them. And so you don't have to be afraid of the question and a section at the end. You can feel prepared. And feeling prepared feels so good. Like, you really feel like you're on top of your stuff. And you can do this. Hopefully, these concepts can give you some confidence in presentations going forwards. So next up, we have what I think is the most important skill in my job, is listening. Listening is so powerful for all these reasons. One, it helps you learn, and it helps you learn about the world around you, the way things work, what's happening next, and it helps you learn how to understand others. If you're having if someone's doing something strange, ask them, get them to talk about what they're doing, and they can explain their why and their how, and you might realize their strange ideas make total sense to them because they have different priorities to you. Maybe you have different priorities about fairness in the office, or an equality over everything else. And you can only get this from listening to the people around you and listening to people in your team. And it can also help them solve problems. So I am often working with people smarter and more trained than I am, and I probably can't solve their problems, but by being a good listener to them, they start talking to me, and after a while, they get the words out and they stumble on a solution to their own problem in their own words. It helps them, it helps them get the context. It helps them get the ideas together. So this is a gift you can give to other people. And with that gift comes trust. People want to feel listened to. They want to trust that you take them seriously, value their opinions, and it really helps them feel validated. And so if you want to build trust on your team and build good connections, a good rapport with a team, this is how you do it. You spend time listening to them. And there is a video on active listening linked in the Trello, which is it's such a useful technique. I found it so useful in helping work through problems, in singles and in groups. And I strongly recommend listening to this. It's like a superpower. So next up, we have criticism. This can feel scary because it's very easy to upset people by criticizing them. And that's actually that's the first error. You can do this well. And the way you do it, you don't criticize the person. You criticize their work or a behavior. And because this way you don't have to go after the ego of the person. They might get defensive, or they might crumble under it. You don't want either of those things. This doesn't have to be about their self-esteem. And so focusing on the work or the behavior is the way. And it's easier if you've got clear briefs and goals, and if you've got clear responsibilities, because you can point at these and say these are not being served. And with that, you can then highlight the problem that this causes, highlight the impact of that problem, and then take a step back. Don't solve the problem for them. You can, because that's not what people want. People don't need you to have all the answers to anything. They want to come up with their own answers. And in some cases, they may even be better than yours. So highlight the problem to them. Get them invested in the fact there is a problem. And then let them solve it. It's how they grow. They will be more invested in the solution. And here are a couple of quick examples. Oh, before the examples, remember to invite criticism of yourself. Like with the listening, people will feel really valued if you ask them, are the processes I'm making serving you? Is there anything more you want from what I do? Is there anything that I do that bothers you? Ask for their opinions on this. Because one, they will feel listened to. Two, they may well have the ideas you need to become a better producer. They can help you grow. So let's do a couple of examples here. So when criticizing work, maybe the problem is the file system is too rigid. The brief for such a system, you can refer to, the system needs to let us easily add characters later on. And the problem caused, the impact is, we will have to keep rebuilding the system each time we add a character. And what you're doing there, you're not criticizing the person, saying you're a bad coder. You're saying this file system has a problem, it doesn't meet this brief, and it creates this impact. And then they can take all that information, make sense of it, and find a solution. Now we come to a behavior, which is probably the scary one. And behavior, you're changing processes without consulting the team. The goal, we need the new system to work for our team. And the problem caused, people are now getting confused by these new changes and keep losing their work. Now that impact is something and everyone can buy into. Losing work is bad. And so the goal, we need a new system to work for the team, is something that this person can work into trying to solve the way trying to improve the way they work. So you aren't solving the problem for them, but you're making it clear and you're guiding it in a direction. And good criticism is such an important part of any healthy teams. Right, we've got a couple more skills to go. Written communication. How do you write an email people actually read? Because everything is text now, people get dozens, sometimes hundreds of emails a day. They don't want to come up against walls of text, and even well-written walls of text are walls of text. Right? So, no one's got the energy to go through them really. I definitely don't. And so but what can you do about this? So use your formats, use headings, like large, easily skimmable headings that have the key points. So someone can look at that and think, I don't need to read that paragraph, or I do need to read that paragraph, or they get the action they need for something else. And if you do need details, put them in bullet points, very easy to read. It's often so much easier to read than prose and long sentences. And make them have to process as few words as possible. And then if you are doing large emails, maybe you have an email that goes out to lots of stakeholders on the same thing, but they only care about certain parts. Someone I'm just interested in the design report. I'm just interested in the art report. Use the technology. Outlook comes with bookmarks and anchors that you can build into your email, so people can just click links at the top and it takes them to the bit they need. So use these. And you're often likely to need to include data in your email, which, let's be honest, people aren't that likely to actually read all of, but they will feel confident seeing that it's there because it feels like, okay, someone has looked at the data. What they want is a summary at the top telling them what the data told you. So, you go through this data, you figure out, this is a problem, we should do this. That should be at the top. People probably only really want to read that bit. They'll trust you on the data. But that's a really useful tactic I use quite a lot. And if you want to know, the best emails are the ones written by marketing people. These people are masters at getting into your head with an email, whether you wanted them to or not. So that is how, they know the way. So you can study this. It's all out there. And a good book to reference for this principle is called Don't Make Me Think by Steve Krug. It's primarily for mobile and web usability, but the principle of reducing the information and cognitive load on the person you're communicating to is extremely valuable. And so I recommend that book. And finally, you. This one's about you. Because self-management is really important. Because, you are primarily responsibility of yourself. And no one else is going to be responsible for you in a lot of ways. So there are questions to ask yourself. So what are your goals? What are your goals of the day, of the job, of the year, of your personal life? And are you meeting them? And are the things you're doing working towards them? Some of the answers to those questions are, I'm not quite sure yet. Frankly, I'm just trying to get a job to learn. It's that's a good goal in itself. Is the job you're in teaching you? You can ask. Next up, time management, which no one's going to do for you. There is so much in our life now. It feels like there just aren't enough hours in the day. And so we have events going on, people's things to remember. Use the tools. There's no shame in using assistive technologies like calendars, apps, reminders, all these things to help you manage time. And there are courses out there as well for good time management, like how to figure out to-do lists and pocket them in places. And there are different ones for different ways of thinking and working. But it pays to invest in some time management skills for yourself. And similarly, it pays to invest in organizing your life. There is a famous book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of those habits is sharpen the saw. So take the things you've got and make it really easy to do. So like, there's a great line from Jesse Schell, the game designer, which is, I reach for the ketchup and it's there. So take the thing, make sure everything you need in life is where you need it to be. So like, and then make sure the stationery that you regularly need is at your desk. Make sure the information you need all the time is either easily on your desktop or printed off and taped to your monitor so nothing ever gets in the way of it. Like anything that is a regular struggle of, oh, I need to get that. Make it easy for yourself. Do yourself that favor. And then how do you measure your own success? What does success even mean to you? Is it financial? Like, is it contribution to society? Is it the achievement of a new artistic and a medium? And what are your goals for that? And how are you going to measure it for yourself? It's like my own success in my job is largely the morale and effectiveness of my team. And how do I measure that? A lot of it is just done directly by talking to them. How much overtime do they do? And what do other people say about the way they're working? And so I have a few measurements there. That's my success. What's yours? And last one. Look after yourself properly. I'm going to make two assumptions about every one of you. 1, you don't drink enough water. 2, you don't get enough sleep. Give these things to yourself. Because there is nothing in any other part of what you do that can help you if you don't look after yourself. So take the time you need. And there's also a video there about SMART goals. So specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound. Like it's a good little framework. Like if you're struggling to come up with goals in your life. And so you can do this to make things easier for yourself. So those are your skills. And now just a couple of minutes on tools. And the key thing with tools is master the tools of your everyday life. So master your communication tools. Don't just write emails. Get good at email. Outlook can do so many things. Like it can do the reminders or the rules, or like click that box that says view in conversations, because that makes things so much easier to read. And the same with your instant messaging tools and your presentation tools. They all have features that can make things so much easier. Get good at these things. Study them. Watch tutorials. I'm learning new features all the time. And that's the same for your communication tools, your project management tools. You want to get good at these as well. Now, some of you may have seen some of these names before, like Trello is what I'm showing you now. Jira is a big part of my life. There's Microsoft Project, Handsoft, lots. There's lots of them. Whichever one it is, learn the good, funky features that are the ones that can make your lives easier. I only found out about filter subscriptions in Jira a couple of weeks ago, and it's changed so much. It's made something so much easier, and it's made me much more effective as a dev manager as a result. And similarly, documentation tools, Google Docs, OneNote, Confluence. There are so many advanced tools within these that are so powerful and can make information flow better. You owe it to yourself and your team to be the master of these. And finally, data. I won't go into too much detail, but your job is likely to involve a lot of data management, bugs, task times, community information. And so you want to be good at the tools involved with this. Excel is one of the bread and butters of production. And there are ways to be really good at it, like get good with formulas. If you get good with macros, it's extraordinarily powerful. But it pays to study all of these tools and be a master of them. Again, the idea of sharpening the saw is about making sure your tools are going to deliver everything you put into them. And that's it. Those are the responsibilities, methods, skills, and tools that I've encountered in the realm of game production. And your game production journey will be defined by how well you invest in these elements. And again, this is all on Trello, which I hope some of you are following on by now. And within that, there is also an example game project, which can show the kind of structure that real world game studios are using all the time. And so you can feel free to steal that, take some inspiration, look into it. I hope it's useful. And that's it. I wish you the best of luck in your production journeys. So go out there and make it happen. And I've been Doug Pennant from Creative Assembly. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in Discord.